So when a crisis happens, like the LA fires, Hurricane Helene, Milton, donors come to our site to look for our lists of nonprofits that are confirmed, highly rated, and responding to those organizations. And we always share those lists far and wide with news organizations. We take press interviews on them. Donors really want to make a difference when they are living and breathing crises. And don't stop asking for support during those moments. Whether it's a natural disaster or economic uncertainty, the two bigs are to do there are keep asking and don't ignore the moment. Like, talk about the moment. I remember the beginning of COVID, there were some organizations that didn't feel like they should be asking, didn't feel like they should be talking about the moment, and it really hurt them. Donors want to meet the need. Give them the opportunity to meet the need.
Kyle works with Charity Navigator, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, what you do a little bit, and a little bit about Charity Navigator. We'll explore more. But so what's up with Charity Navigator, Kyle?
Yeah. And starting with myself, Kyle Gardner, I hold a CFRE certification from the CFRE International, Certified Fundraising Executive. I have been at Charity Navigator coming up on 7 years now. And before Charity Navigator, I was actually in the electoral fundraising space and was there for a number of years, both in Kansas and here on the East Coast in New Jersey. And I am the Senior Vice President of Development at Charity Navigator currently. And Charity Navigator is the nation's largest charity evaluator. And right now, we rate over 240,000 of the nation's largest 501c3 nonprofits. We get about 9 million users of our site each year. And we also have a function in our alert system, which alerts donors to potential alleged or confirmed wrongdoing by nonprofits as well. We are also a bit of a giving platform through our giving basket. So when you're on a nonprofit's ratings page, you can click the donate button and actually support them and other organizations in one fell swoop through one online checkout process, our giving basket. And that's really powered by our relationship with our partner, Give Lively. So about $50 million passes through our giving basket to other organizations each year. Usually it's about over 25,000 different organizations that receive at least one gift through our giving basket each year. We've been in existence for, we're coming up on our 25th birthday, got to plan that party, but since 2001. And we are based in New Jersey, but our team of about 40 folks is spread all throughout the 48 states in every time zone, and we all work remotely. So very happy to be here and jump into some meaty topics. And thanks for having me, Don.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast. I think you come from a little bit different perspective. You are a fundraiser, but you are also an organization that literally rates nonprofits. So you work with nonprofits, for nonprofits, but for the public to understand the security and trust of the nonprofits. So that puts you guys in a very different place than most nonprofits and fundraisers like yourself. So as we know, the world can be a little bit of I was thinking about it yesterday, a little bit of a game of hot lava, right? Yep. We want, as fundraisers, as nonprofit management, to have inclusive and gather in, when even the word, though, inclusive, can perhaps flag us in these times. So we're hot lava. We're learning new paradigm. We're learning a new way of talking points, and where we can see where your organization rating nonprofits, you are constantly in a place of checking yourselves, making sure that your language is inclusive, and you are checking on people's trust and building your own trust. And I think that's a core topic, right, with the issues of the day, because with a Philanthropy Geek, we are focused on bringing issues of the day at the intersection of nonprofits. And when we break it all down of what's going on culturally, politically, socially in America right now, to me, it's about that trust, right? And Charity Navigator is in the business of trust. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. And to your point, there's a trust crisis that is ever growing, a lack of trust and mistrust in our institutions. And the institution of giving is not left out of that. And our mission is to make impactful giving easier for all. Simple enough statement, but there's a lot wrapped into that. And absent trust, how can you make impactful giving easier for all? So we really like to lean into the idea of how to increase trust. When you get a Charity Navigator rating, that is what we consider a high rating, that's 3 or 4 stars out of 4 stars, you can log into your account. You can claim your account if you haven't yet, please do so. And you can actually provide us more information to potentially raise your rating or tell a more holistic story about your organization through your rating. But in any event, when you get a positive rating from Charity Navigator, you can download images within your account that you can then slap on your direct mail, your donation page, your TV ads. Outside of my 9 to 5, I see a Charity Navigator seal that folks have downloaded from their toolkit frequently, about every day. Ads from Feeding America, mailers I get from even smaller regional organizations. It really does increase your trust, whether that's us or your Candid Seal of Transparency, your Better Business Bureau Wise Giving Alliance accreditation, a testimonial from a donor, or all of those if you can. There's many studies out there that prove the point that really does increase trust with your donors, with your volunteers, any constituent type you have. It really goes a long way increasing trust.
We talked about a few things we could chat about, and this wasn't one of them, but I'm really intrigued because you are literally in the business of trust, the more I think about it. And one way to increase trust is to go ahead and grab your Charity Navigator badge of approval. That's a great hint. But since you are in the business of trust, are there any other great points that within Charity Navigator you chat about that give nonprofits more tools to build that trust?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you can chat about that? Because you must talk about that frequently, because sometimes I would imagine, I've not checked anybody up on the Charity Navigator that was bad, but I'm sure that you have to give some bad reviews sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a matter of the information not being reported to us. So a lot of the ratings come from the information that organizations are reporting through the Form 990, which we get from the IRS Business Master File each month. And so it could be a matter of something was missed when you were filling out your 990, and that's why you're getting a check on something. So again, you can go to our site, charitynavigator.org, create your nonprofit portal account, and engage with us and make sure your rating is as up-to-date, as holistic as it can be, because we can't get everything from the 990. A lot of data outside of our financial metrics beacon has to come from the nonprofit directly. So I think that's one important thing. Another thing is in the realm of trust and data is, how are you respecting your donors' privacy if they've asked you to respect their privacy? You can actually give through the giving basket completely anonymously. And a lot of donors like that. Now, I think that can sever I think anonymous giving can sever your relationship between the nonprofit and cause you're supporting, which makes it tougher then to communicate, the impact back to you. But I would say treat, and this is something we've been really trying to internalize, because we have seen a growth in anonymous giving just to us alone, outside of our giving basket, as we are a nonprofit as well. And a majority of our funding comes from smaller dollar individuals, about give or take 75% each year comes from smaller dollar individuals. So one thing that we're trying to internalize more is this idea that anybody could be that anonymous donor that just gave you $500, $1,000, $50,000 through their DAF, their donor advised fund, or it could be that donor. And so if somebody is responding to one of your blast emails, make sure somebody's always monitoring the mailbox for your blast emails, but what they're saying, really making sure that you're actioning that. So it may be that they say, I've gotten this before. I've seen this email recently in response to one of our blast emails is, hey, I'm an anonymous donor. Please stop sending me requests for my support. I will support you, but I only want content updates. That works for me. You've indicated loud and clearly to me that you want to have, how you give told to us and respected by us, and we're going to do what we can. So I mark them up in our system and say, yep, we're not going to send them any more solicitations. We'll check in on them and make sure they, feel confident that their generosity continues to make impact through impact reports. But small things like that can really add up over time. Another practical thing that folks could take away with is, and Don, actually, I believe we went to this conference together that Next After held. Yeah, it was the Nonprofit Innovation Optimization Summit.
NEO Summit. NEO.
Yeah, great.
Shout out to Next After. They throw a heck of a conference. I had someone laugh when I said that, like, how can that be? I'm like, unless you experience their conferences, you don't understand how gifted they are at creating a really engaging and fun event. They really are great.
From
and they're great info. Their information is solid.
from head to toe, whether it's the theme that they land on. I know they did one in Kansas City recently that was, I
And
believe,
they're
it was
coming
Indiana
back in
Jones themed.
October, by the way, to KC.
Oh man, I need to
You
come
need to
back. Yeah, not just for the barbecue, but for the conference,
Right.
no doubt. But all of their resources that are completely free online that show all of the testing they've done. I would say now is the time to really nurture a learning and testing environment within your organization, and it can start small. So, all right, let's play the tape forward. Say you're not rated by Charity Navigator at the moment. You provide information to us. You get your rating. It's a good rating. You download your toolkit. Try slapping your image of your high rating on your evergreen donation form. You know, when you have the support my organization button, and track a pre and post. I realize like A/B testing is easier said than done. Try a pre and post scenario. Work with your marketing and communications team to check out whatever your tool you have to monitor your site traffic. Some folks are really big on Google Analytics. Look at the count of traffic before you had it up, the 7 days before you had it up, the 7 days after, and the donation rates at the same time.
You can do that with your direct mail too. Half of the mail, half your letters have the logo, the Charity
prominently featured. Yep.
The other half don't. Be sure to mark your envelopes in some way so you know which ones did not. Your return envelope. Now that, of course, somebody may use an old envelope or their own envelope, but you may have. Oh, you can check that on. You can mark them in your database that they received the. So don't worry about the envelope anyway. So yeah, you're only as good as your last test. You should always A/B test your emails. You should always A/B test your direct mail. There's a little extra going on, but the valuable information you receive is, especially in small nonprofits, it's remarkable.
Yep.
I had a situation one time. It's not a Charity Navigator's logo, but I tested photocopy paper and heavier weight paper.
Yep.
And in that group, it was a very rural nonprofit. The photocopy weight paper got more donations, more responses in general. And I tried it several times thinking, well, maybe that was just a fluke. They don't trust a fancy schmancy mailing out, in the rural farmland.
That's that's the mantra of, one prevailing mantra within all the testing that Next After has done is talk to people like they are people. And that can come in many shapes and sizes, certainly test around it. But one thing, just practically speaking to that test, that's a great example. In the world of email, have the email envelope, have the sender name be a name of somebody at your organization, have the content be, not even have a logo, just, you're addressing this person, you're talking to them like a person. There's certainly a place for marketing materials, no doubt about it. But when you're talking to donors about their support and trying to achieve personalization at scale, all the testing out there that Next After has done, all the testing I've done in my life has shown that when you can approach people like people at scale, it means the world. And the materials are one thing. I ran a test where it wasn't paperweight, but it was the amount of color, the variation of color, because that can add up cost. And, it may be something that looks very visually appealing to use a lot more color all over the place, but I tried dialing back the count on the color. And not only was I able to get a better result out of that test, but what it proved was we could spend more resources on what actually ends up being a less expensive package, mail more donors with that realized savings, still spend the same amount, but mail more donors.
Well, I think that goes back to trust. Okay. So every audience is different. We're going to preface it with that, right?
Yep.
So if you're doing a rural versus urban versus pros, professionals, so maybe you're doing a mailing to all banks, I don't know. That's all going to be different. But even the most, we live in a different world than even 20 years ago. Most everyone understands the cost of color printing is higher than black, white printing or one color addition. That there's a cost with the fancier mailings. They understand that. And I think it's reflective in what we've seen there, right? The other thing is we were talking about authenticity, I think. And that builds trust when you're authentic with people. The other thing that Next After shows is if you just do, of course, again, it depends on the audience, but emails with just text was getting a better response rate.
Because it looks like a one-to-one. It looks like you're
pictures,
and you're trying to talk to people that way, ultimately. Yeah.
We love color and photos. And for a while, that was different. In my work, you go back 30 years, putting that colored photograph on the envelope, say, drew our eye because we didn't get many letters with color photographs on the envelope. Now it's a standard. Like there's color on everything, right? So the authenticity of just a text, email, or just a letter to someone, and it looks like it's just a true letter to someone. It's like it's swerved the other direction, right? Our attention span is easier attracted to the simple now. Now that may flip back again, who knows? But I do know, I've noticed with more AI and dramatic, people are becoming more skeptical of that hyper reality,
personalization,
saturated color look, right? So it'll be interesting as we move on. But speaking of that trust factor, everything that we do, from our communications to our just one-on-one with our donors in more major gift, the authenticity is that building that trust, being more authentic, bringing people into the reality of what you're doing. Interestingly, yesterday I was at a gathering in Kansas City where they brought together leaders in the community, nonprofits, other people that are trying to move the needle in different areas, and a banker who was talking about sustainable neighborhoods and lending. He brought up that nonprofits have been inundating his bank and himself because he has development in his title. It's about construction.
All different types of development out there.
They talked to the right guy because he's on the committee for their donations. So they weren't wrong about him. He just said they're just being inundated by nonprofits seeking those higher gifts to help offset changes in funding. And he said, now see, we're talking about trust. So how we as nonprofit professionals can build that trust. He said there was a remarkable number of the nonprofits when he said, okay, send me an email. Tell me what about your program. Tell me about the project that you'd like us to help with. And I'm going to take that to our donation committee. He said there was a significant number of the ones that contacted him that never followed up.
Really?
So here's just a one-on-one with a major gift donor.
Yeah.
Then he didn't give names, but he's sharing in a nonprofit public venue that a significant number aren't following up. I think that is a key factor also, the follow through.
Yeah.
And yes, we're all overwhelmed. We're all strapped for time. We're strapped for money. We may not have that information gathered, but here's the biggest hint: gather the information. Everyone should have that information when you're reaching out during stressful times. Emergent times. There's always an emergent time. I love Gail Perry's. It's like, don't ever waste a good emergency.
Yeah. No, I think we've talked about it this way. Easier said than done, but what we call it is radical prioritization. And so constantly realigning yourself, reminding yourself, what are your organization's big goals on the year? And how is the work that you're doing and the projects that you're endeavoring to do across the organization tying to that? And making sure everybody on your team, cross-functional teams, and everybody knows how their work connects up into what those big goals are on the year. So, certainly we're fundraisers. Revenue is always a big goal on the year. But programmatically, what are the key elements that you're featuring to work on, and spreading that often and frequently across your organizations so that everybody on your team can be an ambassador to what you have going on and can articulate what you have going on. I think that's key.
That is exactly what we're talking about. You have to be able to articulate what is the priority for the organization. For that, you have to have done that work. Do that work up front every year, because people don't just give money. People give investment in the work that you do. They want to be a part of the work you do. And the work you do is very important to them. Sometimes we, working in the nonprofit field, we get wrapped up in what we're doing, and that we're the heroes. And I know we never say we're the heroes, but that's what it looks like from the outside looking in. We have to remember that they are also involved. They see themselves. When I give to a nonprofit, I don't know about you, Kyle, but when I give to a nonprofit, I feel like I'm part of that family.
Yeah.
It's part of my identity. I've had donors have to be reminded that they're no longer donating, but they're saying in my earshot that they donate to the organization I was representing. And I'm like, I've noticed you haven't, but I'm not going to say it here. But I do follow up. Here's a helpful hint on an action item. have a good letter with your last 2 donations or your last 3 times you donated,
Mm,
and we miss you letter, basically. But saying not just we miss you, because in their minds, why are you missing me? I donated. But if it's actually in black and white, you donated March 3rd, 2022 was the last time you donated. You're like, oh, I thought I donated the last 2 years, but I didn't.
oh yeah,
So that
definitely
is
no
a very
donors like
good
that.
key. But you
Yep.
still, even if they hadn't donated, it's remarkable how many of them
We
truly believe,
internalize it.
right, that
Yep.
they are a
And
donor still.
nurture that. Yeah. And one test that I'm running right now is when a new donor comes onto our file the month prior, that next month for that new donor audience, I'm splitting them. Half of them is getting a mail piece from me that just says thank you. Thank you for becoming a donor. Thank you for stepping forward. You have to make sure that your database is clean and constantly merging duplicates, which is always a struggle, right? No doubt about it. No way around it. Cost doing business. But have I mailed somebody, thank you for becoming a new donor, and they haven't been a new donor before? Yes, but don't be afraid to make mistakes. They will let you know if you made a mistake, and that's an opportunity to be human with them and connect with them. And to call it a good example of this that I got in the wild, I donated to Team Rubicon for the first time, and they sent me, I think it was a volunteer who did it, they sent me a handwritten postcard that just said thank you for becoming a donor that next month. I can't tell you the last time I gave to them. Maybe it was Giving Tuesday last year, but I still think of myself as a donor to Team Rubicon. When I was just so warmed up by getting that postcard at the first point of me becoming a donor, that is just my identity of being a donor to them has stuck with me. And so when a crisis happens, and scoping into Charity Navigator a little bit, so when a crisis happens, like the LA fires, Hurricane Helene and Milton, donors come to our site to look for our lists of nonprofits that are confirmed, highly rated, and responding to those organizations. And we always share those lists far and wide with news organizations. We take press interviews on them. Donors really want to make a difference when they're living and breathing crises. And don't stop asking for support during those moments, whether it's a natural disaster or economic uncertainty. The two bigs are to do there are keep asking and don't ignore the moment. Like, talk about the moment. I remember the beginning of COVID. There were some organizations that didn't feel like they should be asking, didn't feel like they should be talking about the moment, and it really hurt them. Donors want to meet the need. Give them the opportunity to meet the need. They are heroic. No doubt about it. They're pouring resources, their hard-earned resources, into making a difference that they feel they can make. And it is so powerful. And in terms of copywriting, what I like to do when I'm reviewing content for donors is employ the you rule.
Yes.
I want to see more mentions of you. Whenever I can look at something and I can find more ways to add the word you or reframe something more directly. If I see the word helping, you've helped us do this, try use something stronger. Just take out that completely. Say, you did this, not you helped do this. You did this. It is so much more powerful to try to reframe it that way.
I think it was Tom Ahern who said, read it and remember that when we read things, it's like we are hearing an inner voice. So when you are reading it and your you language is used, we internalize that as a personal one-on-one conversation psychologically. If you use the us voice, it is a separation. Yep. I'm like watching it on TV. I'm not internalizing back and forth in an interpersonal communication.
It's severance.
Yes.
So
you need to remember so when you read it, try to read it and see, are you communicating intrapersonally in their head? Yep. And that has held strong with me, right? I've used that many a time because it's remarkably often that you'll just veer off into the outer voice rather than the inner voice, and the letters are sugar. And if you want to test it for yourself. But there's been so much testing already done for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Might as well just use the good testing and not waste your postage on the poor way of writing the letter. Write it with you language. The other thing I think people drop the ball frequently with in an emergent situation is not doing the follow-up. If you do a follow-up,
ATMing. Yep.
Right, to only the donors that did respond to so they don't get another emergency letter going, Mach 10 hair on fire. The people who responded to the first emergency letter, they get a follow-up. You provided this. We are still dealing with this. And I know you are interested in knowing how we responded with your donation. This is how further donations will help as we keep going. it was remarkable during COVID how much funding increased when that group was broke out. So every
Yep.
time you sent out the other letter to donors who had not responded, and they get another emergency letter, but the donors that responded get a follow-up. They're part of the family. They're on the front line filling the sandbags with you. You don't ask them, would you be willing to fill a sandbag? They're already filling sandbags. So don't talk to them as if they've never filled a sandbag. And then over here, you're still like, will you fill a sandbag?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
so that's a little trust building ways as we go down our path. That way, when there's an emergency, we've already built trust with them from the last situation, right?
Yeah. And speaking of emergencies, and this is something we were talking about before, and flashing back into our political background, each election brings more heightened awareness about topics that people care about just by nature of the campaign cycles and what happens in politics. And one of the best candidates that I worked for, one of my favorite candidates, he told me, no one candidate or no one party owns all the right ideas. Really learn what people care about and how you can best respond to what they care about. And for me, like when I'm looking to make a difference, I have people in my life who have very close people, physical, emotional, and intellectual, living with those disabilities. And so I really care about social services. So in all seriousness, I use Charity Navigator to review the organizations that I support. Cottonwood in Lawrence, Kansas, an aunt of mine who lived with intellectual disabilities and is like a sister to me, lived with my family, received a lot of services from Cottonwood. They are highly rated. I am speaking in a different way than just my vote when I give to organizations that are working on causes that I care about. Now, I certainly want to know how candidates stand on those issues of social services. I want to know how they stand on serving veterans and military families. I was involved with the American Legion Boys State of Kansas program for a number of years. I want to know the organizations that I support that are serving that cause, what the impact of my support is. I want to know the people that I vote for, how they view serving our veterans. So it's really all tied together, and it's one more way to realize that in political moments, during elections, you shouldn't stop talking about your cause and what you're doing with your cause, because chances are your donors are going to be voting with that cause in mind, and it's a bit of like a multiplier effect that you can turn on.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were talking earlier, and there is a good blog post from Charity Navigator. You guys have a nice little blog. And it talked, and it's a little bit older one, about driving change beyond the ballot box. And it talks to donors, but I think we said we could really flip that and talk to nonprofits on the other side on these talking points. And it dovetails with what you're saying there. And the blog post said, volunteer your time, but flip that for the nonprofit, recruit more volunteers. But you have to find things for them to do. Nothing is worse than volunteering and filling out the paperwork, and then you show up and there was a tiny little job and there's not enough to do. So you got to put your thinking cap on, be creative. What can they do? Right.
Yeah.
And communicating during this time that we've all become a bit more aware that we have to communicate with our elected officials more. We assume they know what we do. We got a mission page. They came to the chamber chat, maybe we're talking about our city and county political groups, elected officials. Honestly, I assume it is this way for all 50 states, but in Kansas, we have almost a greater need for a stronger relationship with that local political elected official than we do at the state or federal level. We certainly need to keep those strong, but I have seen more organizations strengthen those city and county level and receive funding that may even be federal and state funding, but the real gatekeeper for it is your county and city officials.
Local representation. Yep.
Right. And so getting your volunteers to attend those meetings, right? And especially if there's a topic of the day. And that could be everything: homelessness, food insecurity, domestic violence, your public media. Those topics come up frequently. Certainly you can get volunteers to go to your state house or call your federal representatives, but going to the city commission when they're actually talking about homelessness issues and being a friendly face in the audience, and when they're saying things that agree with your mission, being the community member nodding their head,
Yeah. And letting your donor base know when those moments are happening. It may not be that they're able to attend, but you're demonstrating that you know what's going on. You want them to join arms with you even more, invite them in more. I think that tactic is huge. And one more tactical thing I'd suggest is I have seen firsthand the growth of text messaging, and that as a communication channel. If you're on a political list, you're probably on a million lists, and they're unfortunately they're sharing your data a lot. I need to talk to my political
But it'd
fundraising
be
friends
nice to
about
get a
that.
text message that didn't talk about that, right?
Yeah, but it's because text messaging is breaking through as an emerging channel more and more and more. So still honor the donor preferences. Like if they're texting you back, make sure you have somebody who's reading those and can action their profile correctly. But break into texting more if you haven't. There's a number of different providers out there at different levels of pricing. Hustle to Tango, so many in the space that are really emerging. They can help you begin to start your texting program, even offer the right creative to be using. I cannot say don't sleep on texting enough. It's really becoming more and more important.
That's a good star point there. So text your volunteers. So they may not have the time, as you mentioned, to go to the meeting, but they feel part of the group that gets texted. And they may see elected official Joe in the grocery store 2 days later and say, how did that discussion go? I wasn't able to go, but I'm a huge supporter of XYZ homeless organization, right?
Exactly.
Because the world is small. Even in the cities, the world is small. And texting those volunteers that have agreed to be part of the advocacy, always ask for opt-in. And if they text back, why are you texting me? I'm never going to do this. You can let them know, no problem. We'll, hope you enjoy our letters.
With email, or do you want direct mail? Yep. Just figure out how you can continue to text with them now, communicate with them. Now, if they say don't contact me at all, honor that too, because circling back, they could be that anonymous donor that is just going to give to you, and they know what you do, and they don't want to be bombarded with communications.
A lot of development directors it's really hard for them to give up that connectivity, right? When someone asks not to be connected. I've had pretty good luck about asking. So, for instance, especially larger gift donors don't want to be connected like that. And they may have an intermediary. It might be a secretary. It might be a financial advisor. Frequently, it's a financial advisor. I always ask, may I send our newsletters and other letters to you in care of Mabel, who does not want to be connected?
Definitely do that.
And that way, when you meet with her once a year, you're able to hand her the file folder. And they have always said, absolutely, we will keep a file folder of all your communications so she knows that you are thinking of her and communicating, and I will make sure and look them over. And received other gifts from that financial advisor because he's getting your stuff, He may not even be a donor, or she may not be a donor, but you're getting that stuff and you're building that trust. So don't be afraid to ask. It might be a secretary. I've had that happen too, where the large gift donor, he said, I'll ask, is there someone? And he'll say, oh, my personal assistant could certainly keep those on file for me. But put personal assistant's name in care of, So that's one way of doing it. Or sending it to an email of the personal assistant or the financial advisor. Always ask.
Find that intermediary. Yeah.
They can say no.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Better you try to communicate. But if there's a no, then don't. Don't do it. Don't break that trust. Right. And texting is a part of that. Don't suddenly start texting someone who didn't opt in,
Yeah. That's political fundraising.
The second thing on your guys' list, I love, because I always think like all politics is local, all nonprofit fundraising is local. And I've had discussions with large nonprofits about this. And I disagree, but it can extrapolate. Support your community events and drives. So you want people to support yours, go out and connect with others and support theirs. If 100%. You're wanting to
build in budget for it if you can.
Right. You may not financially have to even do that, but you can share those elected officials may have pet projects, and their pet projects, you can really have, don't be disingenuous, but things you can get behind, maybe they love the Boy Scouts balsa wood derby, nothing, I don't have a problem with Boy Scouts. I'll share that Boy Scout that if Jane, the city official that I'm trying to make sure isn't bashing my nonprofit because she has some problems with my nonprofit, I'm going to share her Facebook posts about the balsa wood derby that she has a passion for, right? But as we are talking about, as a person, we can do this for nonprofits. The nonprofit can encourage others to really bulk up during these emergent times. So asking people to support not just your gala, Duh. We always ask them to support our gala. But do we ask them to come to the chamber chat that we signed up to do? Are we asking, like, you're a national organization, but you may belong to your local your chamber of commerce.
Yeah, I mean, here's another practical thing. If like you're like us and you're pretty remote and we have presence in New Jersey, but we're across the country technically. One thing you can do, see what your Google rating is. Do you know what your rating is? One thing we did was we reached out to our monthly donors and said, like, you use our services, you're a supporter of our nonprofit, you understand what we do. Rate us. Give us a rating on Google. Tell the world how you feel about us. Pretty low lift activity, but it can mean a lot. It can mean how you show up in Google search results. It's really
it gives me something to do for a nonprofit I support.
Yep.
Like, what can I do? I have a nonprofit that serves a huge portion of the state of Kansas, and they ask the counties that they serve to donate because they augment the services within the county with their help. And so every year is an ask in the county, right? There are donors in every one of those counties. And they were already asking board members from those regions to go to the certain counties. But we started asking every single person that was in that county that is a donor to show up, and we'll give you a little felt thing to put on. And not everybody could. But if you can't, most of these are recorded these days and you can watch from home. Then watch from home. It gave those folks something to do, to support, that was beyond the ballot box, that was beyond financially supporting. They could show up at that county meeting, and some did, or they could see the person in the grocery store. We went back to the other thing, but it's a community event. Even when you're asking the county commission for money, that's a community event.
Very much so.
And so invite that community that's close by to come, right?
Yeah. Okay. I would say, giving is not only American and political, but volunteering is, in any way, shape, or form, in any magnitude, big or small. It is using your voice. It is civic activity, and empower your donors, the people within your network of any constituent type, to help represent you in the political arena. It's huge in a number of different ways.
When you talk about fundraising, it's all about building that relationship, right? You can think of it in terms of every time you have a touch point with somebody, you're asking them to come to the event. Maybe it's a memorial event you hold once a year. I know several hospices do that. You're touching them and asking them. The answer may be no. I've had people say, well, nobody comes if we ask them, but you asked them. It's a touch point, right?
Yeah, that's a meaningful touch
relationship. Point. It isn't necessarily that they are all coming in droves. It's building the relationship. Well, your third thing on your guys' blog was share resources and knowledge, meaning from the point of the volunteer individual. Like if I'm a lawyer, maybe I can share my services with the organizations. If I'm an accountant, I'm a fundraiser. I share my services for free for the organizations that I personally am on boards with. But as the nonprofit, how do we reach out? Are we reaching out and asking them to share their personal knowledge and resources? Do you have programs in the school? And do you have some retired teachers that are donors? Are you asking them to volunteer? Are you reaching out? Are you seeing ways where they can share their knowledge? With funds cut, you may have to expand your volunteer force to cover some of the things that you can't hire those, like there may be attrition that's not filled, right?
Yeah, and I'd say, you certainly have communications where the call to action is to support your work, but don't let that be the only call to action you put out in the world. And even in your automated tax receipt emails, that's an opportunity to ask for volunteers in an evergreen way, like a set it and forget it. Even if in the automated tax receipt emails, just the PS line that's saying, hey, we're looking for more volunteers. Click here or reach out to us. Like, don't just be ATMing and thanking donors. When you are thanking donors, add another call to action. Devote campaigns that are just for finding new volunteers and break up that cycle that everybody's getting, and is the reason why people are unsubscribing to your communications is because they're just getting asks. Our political friends are only asking, unfortunately. The acceleration of nonprofits, only asking, not being only communications, break that up, stand apart, be unique from everything else that they're getting in the world.
I have 2 different nonprofits that I know of that have volunteer grant writers. These folks retired and wanted to do something big. One of them, it was her idea. The other one just wanted to do something big. She had done grants when she was employed, but it wasn't her main job. And so when the volunteer coordinator sat down with her and just asked about her different skills, she brought up that, yeah, I've written a couple of grants. She is now, she focuses on, she'll know who she is if she's watching this, but she writes all the grants for large, geographic wise, large PBS station, rural PBS station, and the complementary geographic area public radio station. It is all she's done for more than 10 years. It's what she does. She almost spends probably at least 20 hours a week or more on it. And they don't employ a grant writer, either of these very vital nonprofits,
Yep.
because she donates her services. Because there was a conversation around how can she help. Now she's quite passionate and a grant writer. The other organization had somebody who just reached out and said, hey, I write grants. I love your organization. Would you like to use me? And she has brought in an amazing quantity of grants. So you don't know who has these skills, but unless you're asking people to volunteer and then sit down with someone to like chat, it's not going to happen.
That intake.
Right. Yep. I actually, for a nonprofit that had a huge quantity of volunteers, 15,000 hours of volunteering a year and no money to hire a volunteer coordinator, I sent out on the Facebook, a job description for a volunteer coordinator. That person is still coordinating volunteers with that organization 5 years later.
And they understand just the exponential value that role has. That's incredible.
So everyone has certain resources they can share. So that was your line item there, special knowledge and resources. Participating in awareness campaigns. A lot of times I can think of a couple of very, very specialized organizations. They think that they only use the paid help on awareness campaigns. One is a domestic violence. And it's very hard for a lot of people working in that field to get past, they shouldn't get past privacy concerns, but know that there are people who are willing to step up and tell their tale, right?
If you ask.
Share,
yep.
Right. But don't forget to ask them if they would like to share, especially when somebody has had some years behind them and gotten healthier and built boundaries, and they've maybe shared their story privately with you. It becomes a habit. I worked with an organization and they're better at it, where they'll go, you can say no. Would you be willing to share your story? And that, many times people will say, I just am not comfortable with that. But you'll find that gem that says, yes, I would like to share my story.
Yeah. We frequently go out and, ask people, why do you support us? Why do you support Charity Navigator? No one goes out, this is weird to say, right? But no one goes out in the world to support a charity evaluator first and foremost. When they come to us, they come to us because their heart is telling them they want to do something. In their head, they're wanting head validation. And so it's a special, we position it as you're a special type of person that, wants to strengthen the sector. You want more people to be able to give with trust and impact. But that's usually what we get back, but we leave the door open. Just simply ask, why do you support our work? And we've gotten people sending in videos and they said, please feel free to use this, share this with your staff. And these really like intricate stories of, folks who may these folks who, may be in an older generational cohort that like to give by check and they're not very online and they just want to give with confidence. And somebody in their family told them to give us a call and ask to get the rating over the phone of the organization that is mailing them, asking for their support. So we'll go one by one with their stack of mail, say, yes, that's a highly rated organization. No, that's not. And then they'll send their checks. And absent that, the stack of mail that they get would continue to grow, and they would know sort of where to start. And the organizations that they call and say, hey, stop mailing me, you have a Charity Navigator alert, or you have a poor Charity Navigator rating, they might be giving to those organizations. Mm-hmm. But until you ask, you can't get those stories. Yeah.
I've seen other forms of asking for stories that can be anonymous. For instance, they've got the donation letter and they slip in a form. Don't, if you want to be anonymous, don't put your name on this, but you can put your name on this. And we're going to put these at an event. Say maybe they'll be on digital, or you can do a lot of different things. I've seen them even, there's a big program in Great Britain where they do the back, they have large poppies. And on the back, they have your family veteran story. Like it may be a World War I veteran, maybe World War II, maybe a current veteran story. but they put the story on the back, and then they put the poppies in a field for their Memorial Day.
So powerful.
It is powerful, and it raises a lot of money. But you can do them a lot of ways, right? I've seen them digitally just shared that way. And once you start asking for stories, everyone will be bowled over. And the stories are things that you're like, I would have never, like you said, never guessed that would have happened.
What we're
That's
part
so
of,
unusual.
how people think of us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know till you ask. Okay. And then it says to donate to the local charities. And obviously, as we reach out, we let people know that they can donate. And some interesting situations I see frequently. Don't forget to go through your database and look at those $25, $35, $50 donors and do a little background check on who they are and how they might work into the other top things we talked about, right? Of course, we're going to reach out and ask them to donate, but let's get to know them a little bit and involve them. You and I were chatting earlier, and I have seen a lot of databases in sometimes smaller rural areas. So I can really see not competing nonprofits, but they think they're competing with the same donors. But it's so funny because there may be a few that overlap, but it's so interesting how they all have their different audiences.
Yeah.
Everybody is passionate about different things. But what I will see is I'll look at a nonprofits database and I'm like, they're getting $50 a year from a millionaire.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Some
and a person that I would have never guessed was going to support this program.
Yeah. And
politically, socially, right.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the more sets of eyes, the better too. Like if you don't have the capability to look at your, donor file through a screening software, get somebody on your board who's well connected within the community and might see a name and have it be standing out to them, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea they were supporting us.
Yeah. And, if you're relying on the donor software and you do have it, don't do that. Out rural area. I don't know about New Jersey. I don't know about other areas, but in let's just say Kansas, it's the same for Nebraska, Oklahoma, Colorado. I've got clients in the whole region. If you are in any way attached to agriculture, your financial read is going to look really wonky to that traditional scan.
Yep.
And a particular instance where this person was giving $100 a year, and they're in probably the 1 percentile or close. And, but they are very heavily, her family's into huge, massive swaths of land.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't show up on her. She had a small farm that she personally managed, and that's what showed up on her finances, if you don't know her. So back up the technology a little bit, even if you're using it, and let your board members or friends of your organization that you've selected and talked about privacy, built the trust on, go over it. People that know the people in your neighborhood. Most nonprofits do have quite a few imports in their employ. They don't know the locals as well as they might. Would you agree? I mean, I see it frequently.
Yeah, it can definitely happen. Yeah, especially in politics, right? People move across the country to work on different campaigns.
Right.
Yeah, they don't know the lay. Yeah.
Right. But I see a lot of, especially, I don't know, nonprofits they don't pay a lot sometimes. I know that's shocking, but sometimes nonprofits don't pay a lot. So they hire a lot of young people also.
Yeah, for the entry points. Yep.
Right. And they don't know like their grandmother's generation folks, so they're missing those key donors. So that was the points in that blog post, which I think, check out Charity Navigator's blog. It's really good. But I appreciate you talking about trust and how to be a part of nonprofits, even after the ballot box, and we're supporting key trends. How can we reach out from the nonprofit standpoint on gathering that accountability group, the group that are going to go, I should say advocacy, and they keep you accountable too, but the advocacy group, they're going to stand up with you, right?
100%. No, it's been great.
Is there anything else you'd like to include as we wrap up?
I would just say, please go to our site if you're a nonprofit professional, and making sure that someone from your organization is representing your rating. You can still apply for a nonprofit portal account if that's the case, but help us better tell your story to everybody that looks at your ratings page on our websites, and help fill in the information that may be missing, or just keep it updated. Like I said, we get 9 million visits to our site, users of our site each year, and over $50 million flows through our site to other nonprofits. And we don't take any, to be clear, we don't take any portion of it. That's the main stuff. Thanks so much for having me, Dawn.
Thank you for being on Philanthropy Geek.
It was fun to geek out.
I love it.